morning and welcome to all our online viewers, wherever you may be throughout the world, to this, our 102nd Armistice Day Service. My name is Dale Jackson and I'm the current headmaster of Jeppe High School for Boys. It is a great pleasure and indeed an honour to welcome you this morning to our online service. This is the first time in 102 years of our service that we have had to unfortunately go online. Like so much in the world this year, due to COVID-19, many of our events are no longer physical, in-person events, but due to safety regulations, social distancing, and in order to protect the many patrons that would have come through this morning, we've decided to have an online service. We hope, however, that you'll enjoy this service. A great deal of effort has gone into producing it for you. I stand at the moment in our Memorial Hall, a hall opened in 1960 in honour of those fallen Jeppe sons who fell in the Great Second World War. You'll see during the course of the production and the service this morning various facets of life at Jeppe, each of which will honour the memory of the many Jeppe sons that fell throughout our 130-year history. Once again, I welcome you to our Armistice Day service. I apologise that you cannot be here in person. This day is one of the highlights on our calendar as we look forward to welcoming so many old boys and family members back to honour their loved ones. We hope, however, that you enjoy the service, enjoy the time spent with us, and we look forward very shortly, hopefully next year, to welcome you back for our 103rd Armistice Day service in person. Enjoy and thank you for being with us. I'm going to invite your new 2021 head boy, Tristan Checkmani, to come and read the opening school prayer. As he gets on stage, boys, could you please stand for that school prayer?
Morning, school. Please bow your heads for the school prayer. O God, who has made of one blood all nations of man, mercifully receive the prayers that we offer for our anxious and troubled world. Send thy light into our darkness and guide the nations as one family into the ways of peace. Take away all prejudice, hatred, and fear. Strengthen in us day by day the world to understand, and to those who by their counsels lead the peoples of the earth, grant a right judgment, that so through them and us thy will be done. Amen.
Good morning to all of you joining us. And I'm aware that this year's Armistice Day is done very differently to how we have in years gone by. But I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Greg Matarelli. I'm a pastor at Cornerstone Church in Bedford View. I've also had the privilege of being a Jeppe old boy and teaching at the school. And for me, this is an incredible privilege to be a part of Armistice Day. And I welcome you from all over that you get to join in today as we remember the men, the women who gave of themselves in times gone by. And I'd like to commend the school, Jeppe, for making every effort to still host this day and still give us all the opportunity to remember, to celebrate, and to hold on to this day with good hope. And I'd like to begin by reading a passage from Scripture that I'll allude a little bit more to in the homily a little bit later on. And the passage is from the book in the Old Testament called the book of Joshua. It's from chapter 1, verse 5 and to verse 9. And it reads this. It says, God says, I will not leave you or forsake you. And then God says, be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you'll make your way prosperous, and then you'll have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. All right, again, thank you for joining us today. I think it's really important for us on this day to slow down, to take time to reflect on the past, to remember the men and women who faced severe circumstances. And then as we remember them, that we find what we can learn from them. And I really do feel that there is a lot that we can learn from such men and women that we can apply to ourselves as well. So today I'd like to take a few moments and just speak a little bit about hope. Now we as people, we have some essential needs. The obvious ones that we think of would be air to breathe, water, food. But I believe that one of the essential needs that we have as people is our need for hope. Hope is vitally important for us. See, hope gives us reason for every single day. It's what gets us out of bed every single morning. It's because we carry something that motivates us to keep going in life, to keep trying, to keep planning, to dream a future. All of that comes from hope. Hope tells us that there's something good that is worth pursuing and even worth fighting for. Without hope, we as people, we could feel horribly lost. We feel unsure about life, its meaning, or what lies ahead. And now the reality is that the hope that we need to hold on to can be challenged. We can face situations and circumstances that threaten to take away hope. This very need that we rely on can be at risk every single day of our lives. So for me then, the key question is, how do we respond when our hope is being threatened? What do we do when events try to steal our hope? Do we give in? Do we give up on our hope? Do we accept this as our fate? Or do we stand up and do we fight for our belief in hope? Do we fight for our need of hope? Now this leads me to think of the men and the women that we are remembering today. Just like us, they would have had hope. They would have had their personal and their collective hopes. Ones that they were holding on to, dreaming about, planning for. But when the onset of wars, of battles, of attack approached them, their hope would have been challenged and threatened. Suddenly, their plans for their future, their dreams for themselves, their dreams for their children and for their community was attacked. The hope for their tomorrows was no longer a certainty any longer. They didn't know what the outcomes of the wars would have been, what lay ahead for them or for their family. They had no certainty of hope, only the certainty of the battles that they would now have to face. So how did they choose to respond? What actions did they take? Well, they didn't choose to give in, nor did they choose to forfeit their hope to their circumstances. They chose to rise in the occasion, to fight for what they believed in, to fight for their future, to fight for their hopes. When they were clouded with uncertainty and unaware of what their future held, they believed in hope and they pursued after it. And hope prevailed. And we are the recipients of that hope. Sadly, some of those who went to battle to fight for hope, they didn't get to see the outcome of their effort and their sacrifice. Some didn't get to taste the hope that they fought for, the freedom they believed in, the restoration of what was destroyed, the peace that they desired for all people. But we do. We get to taste it. We get to see it. We get to live in the hope that they fought for. And we get to live with a new hope of our own. This alone is worth remembering. It's worth being grateful for. It's worth learning from. So I want to encourage us. One of the best ways that we can remember those of our past is that we try to learn from those of our past. And we do need to learn. This year has been an extremely difficult year for many people. For many of you, your plans were disrupted. Your circumstances continually changed. Your securities were taken away. With all of this, your hope came under threat. Perhaps you at one stage of this year, or even before this year, you faced circumstances that challenged your hope. Perhaps you felt lost. Perhaps you felt discouraged or uncertain of your future. Perhaps you lacked hope. Well, I want to encourage you with what we can learn from the men and the women that we remember today. Hope is needed by all of us, and hope is worth fighting for. Now, I know that it isn't always easy to have hope, and this is where I feel God's word can help us. We'll often define hope as something that we wish for. Hope is often something that we believe is a desire, something that isn't always guaranteed, but we long for it. An example would be if you hope for a job. It's something you're longing for, you're wishing for, but it isn't promised, it isn't assured. But now when God speaks about hope in the Bible, often when it refers to hope, it means the fulfillment of God's promise. It means it will happen. It's not a possibility, but it's the hope that you have from God. It can be banked on. You can be sure of it. Hope in God is a certainty. Now, this helps us when we read these two verses. The first coming from a letter in the New Testament, the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 23. It says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope that we profess, for he who promised is faithful." Now, this is what God asks of us. He says, hear my promises, hear the promises of God. Have hope in them, hold on to them firmly. Why? Well, because God who made the promise, he's faithful. He will see that it will come to pass. You can believe in it. The same book, the book of Hebrews, in chapter 6, verse 19, it says, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul." It's firm and secure. This is a great picture of hope being strong. It makes us steadfast and it makes us secure despite the troubles or the storms that we might face in life. God is making promises over us, his people. God says he holds all things together, and that includes your life. When we realize this, when we realize that God is promising to us a future, we realize that is hope. It's not wishful thinking hope, it's certainty. We even see an example in the New Testament with Jesus himself. He had a number of followers, men and women, who hoped in him. They gave up their jobs, their family, they gave up their homes, and they followed him for up to 3 years. And we find that after he died, they were so despondent because their hope was stolen from them. They lost their hope because the man that they followed and believed in, he was gone. But as the Christians believe, when he rose again, when Jesus rose again, their hope was restored with far greater hope as God ensured that his promise would be fulfilled. And even greater hope prevailed. You see, when all the world seems dark, when evil seems that it wants to reign, when life seems lost, in God there is always still hope. In God there's always a ray of light that will burst through the darkness. There's always still good that will sweep evil away. There's always life to be found and lived out victoriously. The encouragement I want to give us today is that hope, it's here for us. There are incredible promises over our lives that God has made, and we need to fight for them. There's hope for tomorrow, for everyone, every one of us. And when hope is threatened, I encourage you, stand up and fight for it. This is what the men and the women that we remember today did. Their hope was threatened. Their future was uncertain, but they believed that it was worth fighting for. It was worth believing in. And hope prevailed. We remember their hope today. We celebrate the hope that they held onto. And we live in that hope today as well. We get to hope now too. And how encouraging it is to think that there are people who'll be waiting on the other side of our hope. So through the difficulties, through the challenges, like the ones experienced in the past to the ones that we experience today, I encourage you. Let's learn from the past. Let's fight for hope, believe in hope. Let's not give it up. Let's hold on to all the good promises God has for us. I encourage you with your hopes.
Before I read out the names of the fallen, it is traditional at our service that we have a grade 8 boy come up and read the poem In Flanders Field. So I'm going to call a representative of your group to come and read that poem. Please listen to the words, boys. They're particularly poignant at this time.
In Flanders Field by John McCraw. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Boys, thank you firstly for being here. This, as I said on Friday, boys, unfortunately as grade 8s, you've missed a lot of your firsts. You've missed your first King Edward's Jeppe game. You've missed your first opportunity to wear a rugby jersey or a hockey jersey. You've missed a number of firsts. This is one of the firsts which you always remember as a Jeppe boy. When I was in school, when Mr. Ngebe was in school, Mr. Faltermeyer, Mr. Olive, we all observed Armistice Day in roughly the same way that you grade 8s are observing it. In days gone past, this is the 102nd Armistice Day service from a Jeppe boy's perspective. In many years gone past, this was a huge event on the school's calendar. All boys from grade 8 to 12, again in days gone past, were required to be present. There was a military parade from all the boys in the school, and these names that I'm reading out have been read out for many, many years, boys. So, whilst this to some extent is removed from your current reality, I ask you just to reflect on the importance of today, the fact that each and every one of these names that I'm going to read out, I think there's 274 names that I'm going to read out. Each and every one of these names sat in the same seats that you boys are sitting in, walked these same floorboards that you boys are walking through, had assemblies in the same hall that you're sitting in now. And perhaps just have an opportunity to reflect on that. People who passed in the war so that many of us could enjoy a world in which we currently live in, which may have been a very different world had those men not gone to fight what was right and just. And perhaps just reflect on the opportunities, the challenges, the obstacles that you face, and how you're going to overcome them in the same way that these men did. Okay, so it's a moment and a time for reflection and contemplation. It's not done in any way to glorify the nature of war. As a headmaster, I hope that myself and those who follow me as headmaster of the school never have to add additional names to the list that I'm reading out. I hope that this list is forever capped at 273 people, 273 old boys, and we always remember their names and why it's so important that that list isn't added to. Okay, gentlemen, as mentioned, I'm now going to read the roll of honor. These are the old boys who fell in the First World War, Second World War, and on the border conflicts. There are 33 names of old boys and masters of the school who fell in the Great War, 1914 to 1918. Their names are as follows: Cyril William Arnott, Robert Norman Barnes, Charles Revel Burdell, Philip L. Davey, Charles Dixon, Frederick James Hannon Dixon, Desmond Beresford Duffy, Leslie John Forrest, W. Gilroy, Frederick William Harvey, Ivor Brian Joy, Richard George Koenig, Murray Stuart Lemaire, Thomas Arthur Letters, John H. Loudon, Melville Leopold Melville, John Miller, Robert Allen Mollinson, William Adam Mackey Niven, Gordon Raymond Pater, the master and former headmaster of the school, in whose honor and whose name you now stand in this hall, James Humphrey Allen Payne, William George Redman, Edward John Sylvester, Hedford Smith, Russell Smith, Stafford Smith, Douglas Arthur Snazzle, Harold Malcolm Stewart, Frederick William van Rienen, Taunton Elliot Viney, George Harold Watts, Lawson Allen White, and Wilfred Windsor, the names of 33 old boys and masters who gave their lives in the First World War. There are then 137 names of old boys and masters who gave their lives in the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. Their names, boys, are as follows: Terence Miles Adair, Percy Adelson, Theodore Dufton Alexander, Charles Herbert Allen, Frederick Morley Allen, Walter Main Allison, Edward George Armstrong, Rex Llewellyn Barnes, Hyman Batsoffen, Samuel Lionel Berman, Dennis Oswald Bulsey, Desmond Burney, Victor Bissett, Sidney Bowley, Ronald Douglas Bryce, Jackson Graham Calder, Donald Maxwell Cameron, Duncan Graham Campbell, John Gregory Kerry, Bruce William Gardner Carrick, Ernest Henry Thomas Chalmers, Norman Frederick Chaplin, John Dawson Clements, John Hornbrook Koch, Richard Cornwall, a man past whose gates you walk every day when you enter Jeppe, Alan Stanley Dashwood, a master at this school. Zalman Dat, Raymond Marie de Merliac, Henry Dietrich, Neil Raymond Dumais, George Lawrence Duncan, William Alfred Dunstan, Norman Edgar Else, Keith Owen Embling, Stratford Wilson English, Roy Dennis Falker, George Bartlett Fox, George Wilfred Friedman, Ian Hamilton Moore Gordon, John Stuart Gray, Thomas Ernest Gray, Cyril Frank Granton, Samuel Bernard Greenberg, Martin Bruce Hall, Bernard Sidney Hamilton, Robert George Hamilton, Andrew Godfrey Hartman, Normand Hochland, Vivian John Hay, Peter Euster Hayden Thomas, Donovan Stanley Duff Heen, Egbert Andrew Hendricks, Frederick Lawrence Higgins, Derek Oswald James, Joseph Jennings, Desmond John, George Philip Jones, Frederick van Sale Keat, Jonathan Frederick Kirsten, Norman Alfred Kulchis, Michael Conrad Frederick Duploy Kruger, George William Lane, Basil Anthony Lavens, John Seaton Lawrence, Arthur Levithan, Reginald Roebuck Lindsay, Arthur Sidney Little, Owen Lloyd, Leonard Wentworth Lovell Wright, Roger Lowe, Alan Brash Martin, Roland Kingsley Matthews, Alistair Hugh MacDonald, Graham Miles MacDonald, Murdoch MacDonald, John Francis McGrath, Donald Angus MacLeod, Alexander Saunders Melville, Bramley Melville, John Leslie Melvin, Paul Everard Methvin, Joseph Arnold Mayer, Frank Bowden Mullen, Leslie Henry Murrow, John Henry Newbury, Jeffrey Nisavant, John Helen Nixon, Gunnar Norenius, Leslie Blair Norse, William John Odges, Patrick Rhodes O'Donnell, Robert Alexander Orr, Terence George Pascoe, Gerald Cartwright Pennington, Frank Henry Perry, Albert Walter Peterson, Edward Pond, Herbert Cecil Pugh, a man who a plaque in our memorial hall refers to his exploits. If you haven't read it, boys, do so. Neville Keith Rankin, another old boy after whose name our lower gates are named. Michael Rathbone, Fred Rainham, John Gordon Wallace Reed, Morris Resnick, Stuart Victor Richardson, Patrick Matthew John Rigney, McClellan Eric Sutton Robinson, Albert William Roger, Aidan Stuart Russell, Edward Claude Savage, Ronald Robert Scott, Reynolds Shepperson, Eric Smith, Denise Hugh Spargo, Alan William Stanton, John Graham Stewart, Gerald Frank Tarr, Frederick Taron, Don Raymond Thompson, Robert Sidney Thompson, Wallace Mervyn Thompson, Albert Tull, Clifford Trenchard, Hubert Dennis Tully, Ralph Charles Varley, Ronald Meyer van Breda, Boris van Buren, Frederick William Berry van Lenzingen, another man whose gates you walk past every day as you enter school. Edgar Victor Waite, Hugh Hart Wallace, Thomas Young Wallace, William Andrew Waterson, Dudley
Wheelwright. Alan James Allen White. Robert Pender Whitelaw. Roy Vivian Wilkson. John Richard Thomas Williams, and John Ronald Frank Bormerans. The names of 137 old boys and masters who gave their lives in the Second World War. Wayne Atherton, Benjamin Fernandez, and Brian Allen Ross. I said, boys, I hope in some ways that moment was poignant for you guys. I hope that it gave you opportunities to reflect. In closing this service, I just want to thank everyone who's online, who's watching our service. As I mentioned at the beginning, our deepest apologies that it cannot be an in-person service, but due to COVID regulations, we have had to go online for our first time in 102 years. And hope that in some ways it's meaningful not only for you boys, the boys in the wider school community, but also those viewing online. In closure, boys, I ask you to stand as I close with the school prayer. Close your eyes and bow your heads, please, boys. We beseech thee, Lord, to behold us with favor. Help us perform our duties cheerfully and with kind faces. Teach us to follow in the steps of those who have counted honor better than life and sacrifice nobler than safety. Grant us loyalty and devotion to our country and keep us from any dishonor and deceitfulness which may cast a slur upon our school. Almighty and everlasting God, mercifully look upon our infirmities and in all our doings and necessities stretch forth thy right hand to help and defend us. Amen.